Hey everybody, welcome back for part two. Before we get into part two with the comparing of our clones, we'll just kind of refresh. We created our clones, we used an ID system, and we gave each clone an ID of their costume name. And when we click on, they'll switch to their ID, which was right here. They switched the costume to their ID. Alright, so that's where we left off. The one thing I do want to look at is this setup script. And we're going to be working with the randomization of the placement later on. I think it'll be easy if we just separate this for now. So take your repeat 3, take that whole script right here where we create the actual clones and place them on the grid. And we're going to make a new broadcast here. And we'll use it when I receive. And I'm going to call this place cards. Okay, so we're going to make a whole new one here when I receive place cards, and then after we set up the project, we will place the cards. I was thinking about it, and we're going to be working specifically in here in part 3, and I thought it would be easy if it was just separated from everything else. And nothing else will change. It's all going to work. It's just the same. It just separates this and makes the script a little bit easier to read for part 3. Alright, so looking at the idea now for part 2. We want to figure out how we're going to compare baseball to basketball, baseball to beach ball, baseball to baseball, and then have them delete if they do match. So we have a few things to do first. Alright, let's make a quick variable here. Okay, we'll go to variables, we'll go to make a variable, and this is again for this sprite only. We're going to give each card a status. They can either be flipped or not flipped. That'll be their status, flipped or not flipped. So we'll make this all caps. That way we know it's for this sprite only, a local variable. That way each clone will get its own copy of it. We'll press OK. And under our initialize, we're going to set that variable up. We're going to set status to not underscore flipped. Now, setting the status right there, each clone, when we create it, will inherit that status. We do not need to put this block in here right now because we're not doing any other types of statuses while we generate them. So we'll click it, and once again, we don't see that they have it, but they do. And the trick from last time, we can use that say block. And you don't have to do this, you can just watch this, but if you want to see it on your own to make sure that they have the right status, we can click say status and just put it underneath the when I start as clone. And when we start as clone, each one of their statuses, status, I don't know, will be not flipped. Okay, so they all know that they haven't been turned over yet. So the idea will be when we click it, it'll switch to flipped, and then it will click another one, it'll switch to flipped. When there's two, switch to flipped. If they are the same, they'll go away. If they're not, they'll go back, and the status will switch back to not flipped. Okay, so let's get rid of that for now. We also need to create 2 more variables. We need a way to store what we flipped. So I'm going to go to variables, make a variable. This is for all sprites. Okay, we need the whole program to see this for now. And we're going to call this choice 1. And we'll make another variable because we are flipping 2 cards over at a time. We'll call it choice 2. And I'll press OK. Okay, notice we have not initialized those yet, so why don't we do that now? We'll set choice 1 to 0, set choice 2 to 0. Doesn't really matter what these are set to, it's just as long as they're not the costume names right now. Even if they are, it doesn't really matter because we don't check until we've flipped over 2 cards. Okay, so put those in there, that'll be good to go. Let's take ourselves down to when this sprite is clicked. Okay, when the sprite is clicked, we have to figure out if we're clicking for choice 1 or choice 2. If we've already flipped over 1 card, we should be flipping over choice 2. if we've already flipped over 1 and 2, we shouldn't be flipping over a third card. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to take this out, because this was just an example to show you how to flip it over. Okay, I'll just put it to the side for now. And when we click the sprite, we need to use an if then else here. And we're going to be comparing and looking at the values of choice. So if choice 1 is equal to 0, which is what we initialized it to, we'll set the status of that card to flipped. And you'll see why we're using the status in a minute. I'll explain that when we get to the check, the comparison. We'll set the status to flipped. We're going to set choice 1 to the ID of the clone. Remember that each clone has their ID as their costume name. So we'll set choice 1 to the ID. And we also have to flip the card over so that we can see. So we'll go to looks and we'll switch the costume also to the ID. So just for now, if we run the program and click, I can flip over 1, but I cannot flip over any more cards. Okay? And you see choice 1 is tennis ball, so that worked pretty good. So this else is going to be, it's called an if else. We're not just going to use the else for anything else. We want to kind of safeguard against that. And I'm going to put an if then inside the else. That's else if. Okay, or elif if you're using other programming languages. And if choice 2 equals 0, then I'll explain this in a second. The same thing's going to happen. Okay, so we can actually just duplicate this right here. Okay, we can right click on set status, duplicate these 3 blocks, and then just change this variable to choice 2. And if we look at this, when we click a sprite, it's going to check to see if choice 1 is equal to 0. If it is, then it will do this right here, and it will ignore this. It's just gonna, the script is done. Okay, but if choice 1 equal to 0 is false, if that's not true, this is equal to tennis ball, then it's going to come down here and check to see if choice 2 is equal to 0. And if it is, then it will set the status and the ID of that one to the choice 2 status to the ID, or the choice 2 to the ID. So it's all a matter of what choice 1 and 2 are. If they're equal to 0, it'll go choice 1 first, then choice 1 second. So let's test that. So they're both 0. Now choice 1 is equal to tennis ball. So when I click on the next one, choice 1 equal to 0 is going to be false. So it's going to come down and test if choice 2 is equal to 0, which will be true. So let's see, choice 2 is 0, so it's true. And we can flip both over. And we can see that choice 1 is tennis ball. Choice 2 is baseball, which would be not equal. So it's no good there. So why don't we make a new broadcast right down here. Because after we flip over 2 cards, we know it's time to check. We don't want to check when there's only 1 card over. We want to check when there's 2. So in here, choice 2 equal to 0. We'll make a new broadcast and wait. And why don't we call it check. So it'll check for a match. And here's why that status variable is so important. And I'm going to throw this out. We don't need this. This is just that one from earlier to show you how to flip the cards over. So when we call check, well, what's actually going to happen? Well, we're going to compare choice 1 and choice 2. Let's do that right now. When I receive check, we're only checking the status of the flipped cards. Okay, the way a broadcast works is a broadcast, when it's sent, every clone will receive it. So we have to limit who's actually receiving it from the clones. So we're only checking the flipped status cards. Okay, so if this is flipped, this is flipped. When we check, only this and this are going to run the script. These other guys here are not flipped, so they'll ignore the script inside. Okay, so if status, I'm going to just shrink that. If status equals flipped, then we can compare. Okay, so quick if then else again, right in here, and we're all done. We're comparing. If then else. Well, what are we checking? We're checking if choice 1 is equal to choice 2. So if choice 1 is equal to choice 2, remember we passed the IDs into choice, so that choice now knows what we're looking for. Okay, if choice 1 is equal to choice 2, what should happen? Well, why don't we just delete this clone for now? Let's just see if they'll delete. And let's check this. Let's see. We'll go here and we'll go... Nope. I don't have to get lucky here. Oh, no, we can do. Don't have to do this. Just to check. So if boom, boom, they're gone. See ball A, basketball, basketball, tennis ball, tennis ball. Beautiful. So our script does work. But then we have a problem, because choice 1 and choice 2 are still tennis ball, but they have to be 0 in order to be checked. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's set choice 1 to 0. Let's set choice 2 to 0. Sorry, that got... And that's all we need. Okay, that's all we need for that. But what if they're not equal? If they're not equal, we need to flip them back to card, but only the ones that are flipped. So we'll use that elif again. And I'll bring the if then and put it inside the else. And we're going to say if they're not equal. Okay, if not choice 1, and I'm just going to duplicate this. I can right click on the equal sign and duplicate. If not, well, here's what we need to do. Why don't we have it wait a second? You can change that time if you want. It's just good to see it so it's not so instantaneous. We'll wait a second. We'll switch the costume after 1 second back to the card. Okay, remember it's only checking the cards that are flipped. The other cards are ignoring this. Switch the costume to card. Let's reset the status of those flipped over clones. So the status, now that it's showing card, is back to not flipped. And we need to reset choice 1 and choice 2 again so that we can continue to look around and search for the matches. So let's check it out. Choice 1 is tennis ball. Choice 2 is ball A. Now they're both nothing. Didn't match. Beach ball. Baseball. Nope. Orange ball. Orange ball. They went away. Perfect. Okay, so maybe we want to see that for a second and slow down that delete. Okay, so maybe up here where choice 1 is equal to choice 2, why don't we add a 1 second, and then we'll beach ball, where was that beach ball? Beach ball, 1 second, boom, gone. Okay, so we have a match. Everything is all checking now. Okay, we set it so that we cannot click more than 2 cards at a time. We check the status of the cards. And let me zoom out for one last look at this script. Okay, when we click it, if choice 1 is 0, then it runs this and ignores the rest. If choice 1 is not 0, then it goes to choice 2, runs this. Now that we know that we have 2 cards flipped, we'll run a check. only checking the cards that are flipped. If choice 1 is equal to 2, we know we got it. Let's reset and delete them. If not equal, we'll wait a second. We'll set them back to the card, reset their statuses, or stati, or whatever it is. Someone can let me know what that is, and reset choices so that we can go and guess again. All right, so I hope that helps. Part 3 will be randomly placing these so they're not always in the same spot. And I hope this helps. Okay, scratch on.